Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the latest shenanigans as the Tory party looks close to a full-blown civil war here. Literally, really, with reports of physical bullying used by senior members of the government last night to force Tory MPs to vote against Labour's fracking motion after the Home Secretary was unceremoniously sacked and replaced by one of the dimmest members of Boris Johnson's old cabinet. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I was supposed to be talking about Brexit again here, but the government caught fire again. It was a big one as well. I'd been expecting some cabinet changes. Braverman was the obvious weak target, but it was no less explosive when it happened. And that wasn't even the most explosive event last night. But let's go over the sacking first. So Braverman being removed and replaced by Grant Shapps. I mean, just to remind people that when Truss took over, she pointedly told Shapps that she thought he was the best minister and best communicator in the party, but he supported Sunak, so he's history. Obviously, Shapps is neither competent nor a good communicator in anyone's books. The reason Truss said that was to make it clear that she was appointing ministers based on loyalty, not competence. Well, look what happened now. I'd already explained that Truss didn't really appoint Hunt as such. He's not remotely on her wavelength, and he's also backed Sunak. But having Truss replace Braverman with Shapps, I mean, that's as clear a message as you could want, that whichever group was behind Hunt's appointment wants everyone to know that they've taken over, really. Appointing Shapps to such a senior position in her government really should be a huge humiliation for Truss. Unlike Kwarteng, Braverman did not go quietly either. The reason given for her sacking was a breach of security. It's potentially true enough that Braverman made a very bad error. Although, you know, there are some on her side trying to downplay the seriousness of it. But nobody believes that's the reason anyway. This is a power game at work here, and Truss's backers are not winning. Braverman attacks the recent direction of the government in her resignation letter, having the nerve to complain about manifesto promises being broken when she was voting for and advocating policies that did just that. In fact, as humiliating as it was for Truss to appoint Shapps to Home Secretary, I'm sure, she may not have been all that sorry to see Braverman go, on balance. She was at odds with Truss on non-economic policies from the start. She may even have regretted giving her the Home Office job. In fact, according to the front page of the Daily Mail this morning, Braverman's sacking followed a 90-minute shouting match between her and Truss. Now, I'm not sure if that's a bit embellished or not. It is the Mail after all. But I can certainly believe there was trouble at mill between them because Braverman has been angling ever since the mini-budget blew up. She's been seeing a chance. And Braverman's less than gracious letter seems to have been part of an intended pushback. She's trying to lead a group to eventually replace Truss. That's what's happening here. Whichever group of Tories is behind the appointment of Hunt and now Shapps is clearly making ground. The ERG Truss ticket may want to fight back. I even wondered if Truss is not so much being an obedient puppet in all this, but someone who sees that she's losing the support of the far right, and she's now trying to woo the moderates in order to basically... She could never have got their support during the leadership contest, but now it's like she's in place. It's a bit like saying, look, it's going to be really chaotic to replace me. I'll sort of come to your side. Maybe there's a bit of that going on here. And if you wanted to know just how ridiculous the government looks now, there was this from a political editor last night. They said, Liz Truss on her way to Buckingham Palace for her weekly audience with the King. We think. Even newspaper editors taking the piss. And this is because of the absolute state of things now. I mean, when I said in August that, yes, Boris Johnson may be the worst Prime Minister we've ever had, but he'll probably not even be the worst one we've had this year by Christmas. I'm not sure I expected the mess to be quite this bad and for the fire to rage out of control quite so quickly. Oh, but that wasn't even the proper fireworks last night. That was just the warm-up act. Labour had tabled a motion for a debate to ban fracking. Truss decided to use it as a confidence vote in her government. She said that any MP not voting for it would lose the whip. Cue William Ragg. He's on the executive committee of the 1922. He made a speech in the Commons ahead of the debate, to say that he would vote with the government, but that he would not have done if it weren't for this hard three-line whip. He explained that he wanted to keep the Tory whip so that the letter of no confidence he had submitted about Truss would remain in place. So when I was saying in PMQs yesterday, no Tory MP actually stood up and told her to go, this was the first time where in the Commons a Tory MP has stood up and basically suggested that she needs to go. There's a few done it publicly, but this was like really in your face doing it in the Commons. But then there was the vote itself. Now, the Labour motion was to debate for a ban on fracking. Okay, so there was news that at the last minute, Truss removed the threat to withdraw the whip because it seemed that a load of MPs were going to vote against it anyway. Don't know. It's so confused at the time. I didn't really know what was going on. But in the actual vote, the government won easily. I mean, really easily. They won this vote more handsomely than they won the vote for their own public order bill the day before. And not a single Tory MP voted for the Labour motion. But then it transpired there were accusations that some senior Tories physically dragged their colleagues into the no lobby to vote against it, like physically coercing them. The whole thing was a massive shit show, and the Chief Whip and Deputy Chief Whip seemed to resign over the mess. And maybe they didn't fancy being in the firing line when the inevitable investigation takes place. So then it turned out that Truss didn't vote herself. Now, I just thought there's always a load of people that don't take part in a vote. It doesn't mean they're abstaining on principle. You know, I just thought, well, she was somewhere else. Is she still at the palace? You know, other things on. Most abstentions aren't really abstentions. They're just MPs who need to be somewhere else for good reason. They can't actually be there. But no, turns out Truss was there. She was supposed to vote, but she got distracted by her chief whip resigning in a fit of pique. Absolutely clowns in charge of this country. Then there was the news that maybe the chief whip hadn't resigned after all. It was all a massive mess. But either way, it was a vote that she considered so important that she threatened to remove the whip of any MP not voting for it. That's how seriously she took it. Any MP not voting against this motion is going to lose the whip. And then she bloody well forgot to vote herself. Right now, people are facing a serious cost of living crisis. Really serious. After a decade of brutal wage suppression, real terms pay cuts really is what they are. And people just can't cope with the current explosion in costs. Like, we need a government. It'd be nice to have a good government, but we need a government of some description. And I'll put it really plainly. Right now, we don't actually have a government. The legislation that was started during Johnson's time in government is still passing through Parliament. But the Truss government is doing nothing. Truss has been usurped. Her own cabinet are in a daze, like a tit in a trance. Nothing's been done. And why? Because the Tories want to manage a transfer of power to someone suitable without looking like complete clowns. And that's in their words. We've got no government because the Tories are still fighting for self-interest. There's no concern for the public interest at all. There's no acknowledgement that actually, do you know what, we've messed this up, but we need to be responsible because the country's looking to us, the world's looking at us, and this has to stop. There's a few pockets of Tory MPs who have got that attitude, but the majority of them clearly not. But it's absolutely ridiculous. As I say, at the last moment, you had this situation where at the last moment, Truss is saying, this is a confidence vote. It's not about fracking. This is a confidence vote in the government. If you allow this vote to win from Labour, it brings the government down. That's what the line was. If you vote, and it's so serious that because it's a confidence motion, you will lose the whip if you do not vote with the government here. Then she removed the confidence test from the vote itself. But it was just so chaotic that nobody knew what was going on. I mean, this will have been what caused the Chief Whip and the Deputy Chief Whip, I suppose, to say they were resigning. Later on, like Jacob Rees-Mogg was being interviewed and they asked, is the Chief Whip still in post? He didn't know. That's how messy it was. He obviously was aware that she had, in a fit of pique, said, I'm off, I'm done with you. But it wasn't a formal resignation without a letter. You know, later on it turns out they calmed down and agreed to stay on. What was basically happening here is a load of MPs who would have voted for Labour's fracking motion voted against it because they were of the opinion, they were of the impression that they were going to lose the whip. They'd been told that. Then it transpired that they would not lose the whip for voting against it. So now think about what this is going to be like in terms of their relationships with their constituents. Their names are now officially recorded as opposing a ban on fracking. Their plan was to claim, no, it wasn't about fracking. This was a dirty trick by the Labour Party to force a confidence vote in the government, which is rubbish, by the way, because if Labour want to do that, they can just do that. And they may still do that. But they now can't claim that. They can't claim it was a confidence vote in the government because it wasn't. You know, they could have voted for the motion, but didn't. Labour played an absolute blinder here, but they've also gotten a bonus prize. Before the chaos of last night, it was simple. If Labour won the vote, get fracking banned. Brilliant. And it means they've defeated the government because it's their motion. They get to claim it. Or lose the vote and get the whole Tory party, not just the government, to be officially recorded defending this destructive and unpopular practice. It was win-win for Labour either way. Win-win. Now they've got the bonus in that Tory MPs, individual Tory MPs who would have voted for it, haven't been able to. They are furious, absolutely fuming. Truss may as well stop with the desperate skullduggery now. Zero way of surviving this. And when the argy-bargy is investigated, which it will, there's complaints going in, there'll be a few others potentially seeing their reputations go down the toilet as well. You know, there was talk of Theresa Coffey, the Deputy Prime Minister, physically dragging people into the no lobby. There was talk of Jacob Rees-Mogg involved as well. That I judge harshly anyone who could be pushed around by Jacob Rees-Mogg. I know he's tall, but there's nothing to him. But, you know, and this is just what happened last night. I probably missed some things. I haven't even mentioned the drama with Javid and Truss's advisor. That's tame now. Forget it. I mean, the way things are panning out here, we really could see a major act of desperation on the part of Tories sooner rather than later. Because I imagine they were proceeding slowly, you know, just trying to sort of keep Truss in place, but just chip away at her power over time to limit the permanent damage to their reputation. But even getting rid of Truss and replacing her with someone without the involvement of party members, I mean, that would be less chaotic than this, surely. I mean, there's no easy transition of power here for Tory MPs, none at all. But surely they can't endure even one more week of this mess. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.